Morning friends, it is bright and early on this morning. We are at 6:22 in the AM. I've got a week off from raw mail, so I'm in the workshop all week and I still get up early, and we have a new guitar on the bench, and this belongs to a returning client, a good friend of mine, Tony, and he loves these old Gretsch's, he loves these Gretsch's, should I say. Gretsch Electromatic 12 string, and he says it might want a refret, so he's bought it in. There's wear on the front and divots on the frets, especially down this end. He says if it needs a refret it. If not, get them frets right. He says, and you know what action I like. Now, he plays with a dead straight neck, does Toda, and his action is as low as you can get it without the strings touching the fretboard. And he says keep the action there. He says if there's a little bit of buzz but you can't hear it through the amp, I'm not bothered. He says I like it, that's the action I like. So straight neck, low action, it's going to be down to something stupid at the 12th fret. I'll have a look. And so I set his guitars up as he wants them. And I'm going to do exactly the same with this. And these are down at, it's going to be near a millimetre, I think. It's like a millimetre at the 12th fret. Might not even be a millimetre at 0.9, but his guitars always play alright. Not warmed up, and I'm not a 12 string player, so but there you go. What a lovely looking guitar. This looks like it's the one with the not set bridge. It's a floating bridge. It just floats around about 5-6 mil from the edge of the pickup there, so you can move these where you want. So intonation should never be a problem on these. It does, however, make them a bit of a bind to set up. But we've also got the 12 string configuration, which is, I'm going to be adding extra. He's not bothered about money. He just says whatever it costs, get it right. If I was refretting it, I told him budget around 350 quid if we need a refret. He says that's fine. He said just get it right. So hopefully it doesn't need a refret, but it makes no difference either way to me. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to check the string configuration. We always have the thinnest string closest to you, and we have a set of Ernie Ball 12 string set there. So we'll start by getting the strings off. Right, let's plug it in first. Not bothered about it being in tune. Just want to plug it in and make sure everything's working fine before I take the strings off, because that way I won't have to faff about later, will I? So let's just whiz in there, turn on my Spark 40 amp. Just make sure everything's working. Posh as a scratchy scratcher. Too bad, so we'll get away with that point switch screen. I might get the tops off and squirt some in from the top down, but that's pretty much fine. So, because the problem with this is, well, not a problem, you have to get the pots through the F-holes, and that's too much fannying about. Even though if I had to do it, I would do it. But you'll also notice in here there's a sheet roaming about in here somewhere. It's some padding that Tony's put in there to stop the guitar feeding back. It looks like wool. It's not wool, it's synthetic something, but that's fine, don't want to fanny about with that. So we are going to, I'm going to leave the camera there because I'm going to come back and show you the frets in a while. So let me turn the camera off. I'll get the strings off, the bridge and everything, and I'll come back and we'll have a look at the frets and see what I think. Okay, got the strings off. One surprise, this bridge is glued in place. This is not normally the case on these. These are normally freestanding and floating, so you move them where you like, but maybe you got it set up, got the intonation right and thought, you know, we're going to glue that down. And there's nothing wrong with that. So looking at the frets, what do I think? Well, we do have some really nasty divots, especially at this end. And these frets are quite low, so I'm considering we may have to refret it. What I'm going to do is, I'm going to measure the height of the frets. And the divots are all the way up to the 12th fret here. Especially in this middle area, the middle 2 strings. Or the middle 4 strings because it's a 12 string, but you know what I mean. I'm just going to have a look at this. I'm thinking that goes... I didn't check which way this is on, did I? I know which way it goes that way. Tell it goes that way. But that doesn't look right. But because it doesn't look right, it doesn't mean it is right. Okay, well, I think it's right. Regardless of that, we're going to measure the height of the frets. Unfortunately, very fortunately, I bought a Stumac caliper. Blah 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 blah, and this has the fret height gubbins on there. I always take the battery out because these wear out really quick if you leave them plugged in. So, got it in there. And what we're going to do is we're going to check the height of the frets. And how you do this is you set, you have a little pokey thing out and you set it level like that, then you zero it out like so. We are 0, and then what you do is you put it over a fret. You can't see, can you? We measure a fret, and that gives us 1.11. so let me move the camera and I'll show you exactly what I've just done. 1.11's saying okay, as long as we don't remove more than 0.3 of a millimetre, we'll be alright. Now the problem with getting them down to 0.8 is that's the lowest we can go whilst we can still recrown them. Any lower than that we can't recrown them because we don't have enough height to get the file in. The thing is, if I'm bringing these down to 0.8 millimetres, it doesn't give us any room for dressing again in the future. Whereas if I replace all the frets and put some 1.2 mil in there, and if once I've sanded and leveled those, there's going to be 1.1 left. It gives us a redress, a fret redress down the line in the future. So let me show you how I set this. So let's, again, what I do is, I'm going to set it to 0, I've reset it to 0. What we do is, we take, it's got this gubbins here, we need to set that, we need to zero that out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it on the fingerboard, push it all the way down, and that's giving us a reading of 1.09. We set that to 0, which we've done, and now when we go over a fret, I'm able to press in, and that gives me a reading of a fret height of 1.09. And I'll move on to the next fret, 0 out, we'll go 2 frets along, and that gives me 1.01, which means the frets are lower. So again, we're going to keep checking some frets, go further along the fretboard. 0.93. So the frets are getting lower. These are with divots as well. I'd say these are going to be too low to level. We're maybe looking at a refret on this one. That's what I'm thinking. Try and get a divot. 0.91. So I think we're going to go for a refret on this. It's going to be a big job, but it's a 12 string. No bigger job than any other guitar that I have in, so I'm going to recommend we go for a refret because the frets are quite low. Now fortunately I've got some good Stumac fret wire which I'm going to use on this. I'm going to go some Stumac fret wire which is about the same width, a little bit higher, and I have a whole tube of it. So I have quoted him 350-ish ballpark. We'll see what I can do, see if we can get a little bit lower for him, but with it being a 12 string, a little bit more work. The knot, we might get away with leaving that knot on there. If not, we'll have to cut a new knot, which will put the price up a little bit. Just gonna check some of these frets a little bit further along. .98. I think down here we're going to be okay. 1.08. So this end we're not too bad, it's just this end here. But yeah, certainly somewhere. Let's just check again where there's most wear. That's saying 0.76. That's on a divot. So we're too low to recrown. So we are going to go with the refret. I'm quite happy with that. So I will let him know. So as is par for the course with these type of jobs, I've lowered the pickups so they're underneath the height of the neck itself, which means when I'm leveling frets I'm not going to hit the pickups. I've taped over everything, taped over the pickups, taped over this end of the body, because if we hit anything with a file we're not going to damage the body. I've also added a truss rod adjuster in, so we've got the neck straight. It's slightly nipped up, it's a dual action truss rod, it works both ways. It's slightly nipped just a tiny bit anti-clockwise. What I'm going to do is I'm going to heat these frets up and get them out. No mean feat. We take us time, and I will be using a chip stopper. Got this from Stumac a while back, and as you start lifting one out, you slide this underneath to stop it chipping the fingerboard. Makes it easier to replace them. But what I need to do before I do anything is I need to measure these frets and see how wide they are, and see if I've got any equivalent fret wire in the workshop. I do. I think the Stumac one's going to be perfect. So what we're going to do is we're just going to take a width check. Look about to be about 2.6, 2.7, and there you go, 2.72. So I think the Stumac stuff I've got is around about that size. I want to say 2.86. There you go. One of them's lying. 2.73 in inches, 0.108. Let me have a look at my Stumac stuff. See what this is saying. 0.10. I think that's going to do. And we'll have a look, we'll take a piece out. We go with something close. If it's not wide enough, we'll have to use something else. I'm sure I can go and buy something. I'll get a proper measurement once. But that looks to be a little bit thinner. Probably not going to go with that. I'm going to go with something a little bit wider. What is 0.1? See what 0.1 is. Millimeters. .1 in millimeters is 2.54. I'm going to go with something more 2.7. So I'm going to go and see what I can buy on the internet. I'll probably go with some Syntom stuff. I may have something in here. I may have some 2.8. I've got some 2.8 in the box. There you go, I've got some 2.8. That's what I'm going to go with. Don't know if there's enough. .3. Plenty of 2.3. 2.5. 2.5. I don't have enough 2.8. There's not enough there. Sorry that for nothing. What are we? 22 frets. I don't have enough for 22 frets there. Can I have a look? Don't think there is. 1, 2, 3. Get 4 out of that. So I've got enough for 16. Enough for about 18 frets there. That's not enough. So I'm going to go and buy some fret wire. And that's fine. I'll buy enough for a 24 neck. So that's what I'm going to go with. This is 2.8. I think we'll get some 2.7. See what I can get. But I'm going to get something strong. This is 25% nickel silver. It's elite fret wire made by Syntoms. I love this stuff. I've been using it a while. I'm going to see if we can get some of that from Tone Tech Pro. And we'll come back and we'll get these frets out. This afternoon I'm going to be pulling frets on this Gretsch And I've already pulled one out. I'm using various tools to get a little bit of burn on the binding there, which we're going to try and avoid. I'm just scraping that bit away. So how we're going to do this is, I do have an adaptive soldering iron which is too hot. It's a 40-watt piece of gear I got from Maplins years ago, and I altered a bit, bent it and put a flat, well I actually put a groove in it. But the groove is not perfect for what I want it to do, but even though it does kind of slightly sit on the fret, it doesn't work for all frets. So I'm going to be using a chip stopper, a fret puller, well not fret puller, it's it gets under your frets, but we're going to heat these up. I don't want to get too close to the binding because it's quite easy to burn the binding, but these frets, that first one was really tricky to get out. This would have been, looks like it had nibs on originally, the nibs have been cut off, but we're not worried about that. Good thing about it is, we're going to go over the binding anyway with the new frets, so if we do cause any damage, it's not going to be a problem. It's just we'd rather not. So this is a painstaking job. It takes a while to get the frets warm enough for the glue to melt underneath, and then we've got to get the grabbers underneath. I did have another pair of grabbers, I've lost them, I don't know where they are. Slightly better set than this, so I'm going to make do with what I've got. Lovely piece of rosewood, this neck. Right, we're just starting to sweat around these areas, so we are melting glue. Quite therapeutic, this part of the job. But what I want to do is we're using a chip stopper because we don't want to chip the fingerboard up, we'll have to repair all the chips. So we've got to get right in here and get underneath this fret, and we've got straight under that one, we didn't the last one. So we take the chip stopper, start sliding that underneath, and we just try and get a grab under the fret. See, it's not grabbing again, here you go, it's grabbing now. You don't want to grab. That chip stopper's not doing its job properly either. So you can see it can be a difficult job. The idea is to get underneath and move along, but these don't want to come out. So you see how we're using two hands here to get through the job, and that's great because we've not chipped it, and I'm going to show you the fret. And this is why we're refretting it. Look at the state of the fret. Big deep wear marks in there. So this is going to take me a good while. And that was the first one out. So this is going to take me a good while to get this out. Now what I like to do is I like to just give the fret a scrape. Now I do have a purpose-built saw for cleaning these slots, but I just like to get in there and just have a quick, I can feel the glue in there. I don't want to cut through the binding, so I have to be very careful. Now I do have a purpose-made or a purpose-bought saw for this job. One of these drawers. There it is. And this is it. And again, it's a Stumac piece of gear, Stuart McDonald. Blah, blah, blah. And this got two little cutters in there. One for cutting one way. I think that's the push. I think this one's the pull. Oh, that may be the push. Who knows? But just working that gently in there, you'll free a lot of that glue. I'm going to make that slot ready for the next fret. So that one's cut, and what I do then is I go and get some compressed air. Carry this in cans. So I'm showing you all different parts of the job right now, just so I don't have to show you again later. I've got some compressed air can, and I'll then blow any crap out of that slot. That slot is now ready for a new fret, just about. There you go. Be very careful, because I've cut through the binding in the past, and that is, for want of a better expression, it is a bind. And there you go, and that's that one already prepped for a new fret. I'm not going to do them all as I go along, because we're going to get crud in there anyway. So the compressed air and this saw can go away until I need them much later. Anyway, I'm going to crack on, get these frets out, take your time. No chips so far, which is good news. I will be sanding down the fingerboard later on. So this is going to be me for the best part of the afternoon. And yeah, can you see there, that had nibs on there and they've been removed. So this may have been fretted originally, I don't know if it was already fretted with nibs on, or it's had nibs on, we decided they didn't want the nibs, we cut them off. Looks like it's already been refretted. I'd have definitely thought that this fret wire is wider than the original stuff, because they wouldn't have gone with 3mm. And this looks really, really wide. So you can see it takes a while. And once I start seeing sweat either side of the fret, or steam, and I'm probably ready to go in. We'll be able to go in. There you go, a little bit of steam rising there. And we should get a start on this fret. Don't want to get too hot that we melt the binding. There you go, that's in there. I'm going to try this without the fret chipper, because it may pull out without chips. And it has done. Well, that's nice and warm. And that's not chipped. I'm going to sand where these nibs were. I'm going to sand that down a little bit later. I'm going to sand or scrape. Scraping with a Stanley blade. Might be able to work just as well. There you go. Scraping's working just as well. I'll not do this side yet. It's always best to work away from yourself. And so this is going pretty well. No chips so far. If there's no chips, if you don't chip the board, I haven't got to repair them. I've had, in cases before, I've had 60, 70, 80 chips on a fingerboard, and it really takes a long time to repair chipped areas. So if I can avoid it by taking my time now, exactly what I'm going to do. Tony ideally wants this for a gig next week. I've told him that I'm not going to get it done for then, because I've pushed other jobs aside, and some of the jobs I've had in have been here a while, or they've waited a long time to get in. And it's not fair of me to jump onto something else. But I'll see what I can do. He's paying a premium for this. He's paying £350 for this refret. It being a 12 stringer. It's going to involve more work, a longer setup, and having Q jump in him as well. But with binding, there's always an extra charge with binding, because we've got to spend more time getting the frets in. We've got to cut the frets, we've got to trim the edges off so they fit inside the binding. And it's never much fun setting up a 12-string guitar, is it? We can go there. I'm reluctant to not use a chip stopper on the whole neck. Normally when you get towards the body end, you seem to have more glue in there, or they seem more difficult to get out. That's probably because the space between them is less and the wood's more compressed. But that one's come out nice and clean as well. feel the heat. So I'm going to crack on with this. I'll stick something on YouTube, something for me to listen to. My wife's still at work. It's Friday afternoon, it's 3:45. She normally finishes at 3:30, but she never finishes at 3:30. She's got some extra work to do there. Then she's got a driving lesson at 4:30 today. So she's not going to be until about 6 o'clock. So I've got 2.5 hours to get this done without interruption. I've got to take the dog out, but it's really raining heavy outside. Dog's not been out today, it tends to stop raining. He's been moaning at me to go out, so I opened the back door, says go on out you go then, and he looked outside and he thought, no, he thought better of it. He went out, did a bit of business, and he comes straight back in. So I think he understands. So I don't know if you can see, but there's all steam and sweat coming out the side of the fret now, so I know it's now time. I can get the fret lifters under there, and it'll come out relatively easily. Still going to be wary. Some of them are a little bit difficult to get underneath, like that one was. Again, no chipping, so good. I wonder if I can get one out without heating it up, probably not. Oh, I've got one. Let's see if this chips. Sometimes you can get them out quite easily without heat, without chipping, but I think this is going to chip. No, it hasn't. That's pretty good. So I may not have to heat all these. Now there is some green residue under there. Which means these frets have been a good while. You could play this by ear sometimes, and you can just do, you know, have a go and see if you can get them out without heat. If you can get underneath them straight away, it normally is a good sign. They don't always come out easy. It looks always green on there. I'm going to have to get all that cleaned off. Can't even get under this one. Sometimes you have to coax them. It's a tough one, this one. You don't want to be throwing too many dents in the fretboard. It can happen. But that's good, we haven't there. That was a tough one. So I think I'm going to still carry on and heat them. So these got all the green on, but not been heated. The ones that have been heated, the green's disappeared. So we are melting whatever that green residue is. So I think I'm going to carry on heating them. But a nice clean board so far. Very, very good to see. And it's nice to be doing a refret. I've not done one for a while. I've got 4 in the workshop at the moment, 4 refrets. I'm not supposed to be doing this one today, I'm supposed to be doing another one. Got some really big projects in at the moment. One a 1964 Gibson 330, I believe, 330, yeah, you heard me right. And it's in a bad state. The neck has been filled in areas and there's divots all in it, and the neck's not even straight. And, but anyway, that's my wife just come in. She's coming earlier than I expected. She'll know I'm videoing because I've not answered, so now she knows you sport a video, but I won't hold it against her. But anyway, I'm going to crack on removing these frets. I'll come back and give you an update a little bit later. Back soon, guys. So that didn't take me too long. Got the frets out. So I'm going to let the soldering iron cool down before I put it away for the next job. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to scrape the binding just on the edges, just where the frets were, because it is discoloured underneath anyway. And I've got a bit of a protrusion where the nibs used to be. Very strange to see cut nibs here. So does it mean it's been refretted before? I have no idea of the age of this guitar. I don't know the age or the model. Not very important to me. I'm just refretting it. I'll just work on it regardless. I would like to know the model, but the model number is covered up by that piece of whatever is inside there. But that is that side scraped, and that binding's all clean. So I'll do the same on this side. And that's everything nicely cleaned up binding wise. A little bit of mark there still. So the next part of the process will be for me to clean up the fingerboard. And to do so I'm going to go with some naphtha. Now, don't really get naphtha in England, but we get the next best thing. Well, we do get naphtha, but we know it as Zippo lighter fluid, which is naphtha, believe it or not. So I'm going to clean the fingerboard and I'm going to give it a good dousing. I'm not going to set anything on fire, but I'm going to give it a good douse in there. And this stuff is great for cleaning. Now what I didn't do was I didn't get a rag, but I've got a rag here I've been using earlier for steaming a fingerboard. So what I can do is, even though it's wet, I can use this. I don't mind getting a bit of wet in there anyway. Use this to get rid of all that crud and all that green stuff that's under the frets. I can smell that naphtha. And that is cleaned up. And I don't want the damp getting in there because it's going to dry. One, it's going to dry out anyway, but two, I do get a bit of wet in there just to loosen that crud that's in there. Now, what have I done with my? Alright, that's the 2 towels I was looking for. It's right there. Look, I'm just being daft. I've got another one here. I've got plenty of rags knocking about. That one's too clean and too good to use. So I must have something. I've got a bit of chamois leather here. This will do. There was a divot there. I'm not touching the divots, I'm leaving them. But look how's that looking up. We've got a fingerboard. Lovely and clean. So without further ado, get these frets out of the way. We'll stick these are from Guitars and Woods, by the way, a company I fell out with, but these fret pullers are really quite good. And I'll be honest, not a lot of their tools are good. In fact, the reason I fell out with them was because of some of their tools, and they accused me basically of lying. So I told them where to go, and I released a video. And hopefully I cost them a lot of money. Quite a few people stopped going there based on evidence from my video. And they were really very rude, and they basically called me a liar. And I said one of their radio spins wasn't quite right. But anyway, set that for another time. Stick that in there. So, and we are going to get inside these slots, fret slots. Just put my chip stoppers away. Didn't really need them. Didn't really need the soldering on that much. I pulled a few of the frets out without heating them. And they all come out really well with no chips at all. So there's nothing to repair, which is fantastic. So, let me grab my slot saw. Did I put it away? Put it somewhere. It's right here, right in front of me. And I'm going to go in here and I'm going to take my time. I'm going to go in with a Stanley blade and just have a feel. We're going to go in with this. And we're just going to, see how we can still see the fluid in there. And we're just going to make a few cuts. Just make sure that everything is smooth. And then I'm going to take my compressed air and I'm going to blow in there. If there's anything in there, we're going to get it out. Something a little bit loose there. But there you go, look, and that's it. Look, I'm getting all that old glue out. And I can already tell you that that slot is clean and ready for the new fret. I've got all that crud out of there. That one is also clean. again, it's going to take me a while, so I'm going to crack on, get all this done, and I'll come back and give you an update a little bit later. So guys, I thought I'd just show you how it's going, and it's a Friday evening, sort of Friday evening. My wife's just gone on a driving lesson in my car, in the Jag, in the Fretmobile. I have a wonderful older, well not an old, one of the last models of the S-Type, Jaguar S-Type 2.7 twin turbo diesel, fantastic car, I love it. And my wife was training manually, or learning a manual vehicle, and I thought, you don't want to be doing automatic because she'll be driving automatic in Canada when we move there. So we asked the instructor if he'd use my car, and he says, yeah, fine. So she's now learning in my Jag, which is brilliant. But hey ho, I digress. It's nothing to do with this video. I've decided to put the camera back on to show you. I've cut 10 slots, I think. 11. Yeah, I've cut 10 slots. Going to be 11. But I'm going to show you, because I dampened the fingerboard and let the water run in. It has softened the glue, and I'm going to show you how we get the glue out. And it's just like this, and you see there, and that is glue residue. That's the old glue coming out. And they are drying a little bit, but I can feel the glue in there, and you know when you've got the glue out because you can feel it's wood. Now these are dried a little bit, so I'm going to have to just go back in there and cut again. But I'm just wanted to show you how we're getting the glue out, and this has been quite stubborn now, but you can see it. I'm getting to the glue. Look, there you go again. I'm getting to the glue, and that's the old glue coming out. Sometimes paste is going with a Stanley, which loosens it even better because you're cutting into the stuff. It can be a bit stubborn. Ah, that was it. There's a bit there being a little bit stubborn, and I think we've got through the worst of it now. So let's see where we are. And there you go. Now we're getting to it. Need to push that one that way. I've got a stubborn piece in there somewhere. Aha, there you go, we've got through it. I know it's glue because it is being stubborn. I think now we are past all of the glue. And there'll be still some in there, I can feel it. I can feel it in there at the bottom. Let's see if we've got it free now. At the end of the day, as long as the slot's deep enough to take the fret, we're going to be okay. There's still something in there. I can feel it. So let me go in with the blade. Yeah, I can feel the glue. It may just be an excess build-up of glue in there. So yeah, so this part of the process takes time, but it's worth doing right. There you go, and now we've got a clean slot. I can feel it's clean now. So we'll just give it a quick spray. Still got some fluid in the next one. We'll move on to the next one. 12. So we're getting through this. Just come through at a bit of an angle just to start getting that glue moved. And there you go. And again, this is all the old glue coming out. I'm going to go both ways on the push and the pull. I can feel the glue in there, very stubborn. And it tends to be all down this side, so what I'm going to do is, I'm going to get some more moisture in there. That's a big piece of glue, look at that. Yeah, we've got it now. I think because this is drying out, because this is the 12th one I've done now. and it's drying out on this side, so I'm going to get some more water in these last of these frets down here, because that is still glue, I can feel it. And that is now clean. So I'm going to go back, wet all these. We've got 12 done. So I've got 10 to do, I believe. But they've dried out now, and the glue tends to be thicker for whatever reason on this side. Regarding chips, I've got one little chip there. I'm not even going to hide the chips, I'm going to leave them because the fret wire is going to cover them anyway. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back in with some more naphtha, which is going to soften up the it will soften up this glue somewhat. And let that soak in the frets. Because it's that that's softening the glue inside. And I'll give it a few minutes before I get the blade in there. I've poured myself a man-sized gin and tonic. Look at this. That's 1 part gin and only 2 parts tonic, so a good gin and tonic in there. And oh, that is delicious. That's really, really good. So that is for me to sip. That will last me about an hour, that, and I'll be finishing work. I won't be working whilst drinking, obviously. I'll have a couple of sips of that over the next hour. That's a little treat to myself on Friday evening. See, that's got some naphtha and some water in there. That will soften the glue just a little bit. That's what I did with the first 12, and I'll get my bit of chamois leather again. And this should make things a little bit easier. So we've got fluid in there again now. And let's go again, let's show you. So I've just done 12 if I remember rightly. Yeah, that one's done. I can tell it's done by how easy the blade has gone through there. So we'll clear that slot. And the fingerboard's looking lovely. I'm not even going to re-radius the board. Don't think it needs it. I will check it. I can check the radius right now. Let's go with a check with a 12 and see how we are. Do you imagine it's going to be? I'd imagine at a guess I'd say 12. That looks about right. That must be pretty much spot on. Let's just check with a 10, because you never know. Ten kind of works at that end, but it doesn't up here. No, it's definitely flatter than a 10. So here's a 12 radius, a bit more 10ish down here where it's been worn and used quite a lot. So I'd imagine it's a 12. So I'm going to treat it as a 12. Anyway, let's get in here. I can feel the glue. It doesn't really want to move. There is some there, and that's much wetter. So I'm going to get the Stanley blade in there. I'm going to start cutting through the glue. I can feel the glue. It feels like a piece of chewing gum in there. I can feel it. Here you go. Look, it's pulling it out. Look, the blade's pulling it out. So it's a good thing I'm using this naphtha and water trick and going in with the blade and the saw, because it does need to be gotten out, because if we don't get the glue out, the slots are not going to be deep enough for the new frets. So there's a lot of gunk in there. But there you go, look, and that's more glue we're getting out. I have an Ibanez Blazer, an old 1980, very first version one to refret. Now that has got a maple board, maple neck, and it's got a compound radius. Not looking forward to doing it because he wants me to take the lacquer off the top but not off the sides and back. And he wants me to keep a compound radius, which is going to be a heck of a job to do, to get the lacquer off and keep it compound, because you can't get files on it or leveling beams or radius beams because the radius changes up the length of the neck. So it's going to be a lot of work, and I'm going to charge accordingly, of course. But that's going to be a great project. And then it's going to go down to Mike at Stonewolf Guitars, Mike Payne, because I need a new decal putting on there because the original decal has got it's ripped, it's chipped, and it needs replacing. So I'm going to get him down there and I'm going to get him to respray, re-lacquer the neck, but not to lacquer the top. Again, it'll be charged accordingly. So whatever Mike charges, I'll pass on the charge to the client. That's going to be a good project. But a lot of work. So this one being fret 14, still got a few to go. I'm going to do this one, and when this is done I'm going to do the rest off camera. And look at that for a lovely blob of glue out there, look. So these are things you've got to consider when you're doing a bound necked guitar. You need to get inside the binding and get all this glue out, cut the slots, and when you put the frets in, you've got to cut the tang off inside the nibs. So it's a lot more work. So when you're pricing up a bound neck, you want to be pricing up another 2 or 3 hours on top because of the extra work. For a nibbed guitar, I already add 25 quid on. And then if you're repairing chips, it's another 25 quid on. And my fretting prices start at 250, that's before you start. And if you want a special fret wire, like this is a special fret wire, it's 25% nickel silver, the hardest nickel silver you can get. I think there's only Syntoms do it. It's super hard, and it'll last years, last many more years than regular. Standard fret wire is 12% nickel silver. That's 12% nickel content. Your harder stuff is 18% nickel silver. The stuff I use is 25%, but it comes at a premium. It costs more and it's more difficult to work and it's harder on your tools. So again, prices are charged accordingly. And that's that slot done. So that's it. So I was 15. Got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I've got 8 more to do. I'm going to crack on getting them done off camera. Once that's done, I'm quite happy with the radius. It's a little bit closer to 10 down here, but it is at 12 up here. So I'm going to radius it as is. We're going to make the level with frets anyway. Because don't forget, your playing surface is not the fingerboard, it is the tops of the frets. It's why I'm fret friendly. It's why I insist on as straight a neck as possible and perfectly level frets. You know, there's a reason behind it. So there you go. So I'm going to crack on, do the rest off camera. I'll come back and give you an update as and when. Good afternoon, fret friends. I'm going to be cutting the frets for this 12-string Gretsch I've got here. Now, I bought a brand new fret tang nipper from Stumac because it cuts stainless steel, and I was going to use it today, but I've got no idea where I put it. So I'm going to have to use my old fret tang nipper, which is fine for this fret wire I'm using. It's by Syntoms. Now this one, I can even cut stainless steel with this at a push, even though it says it's not for stainless. But this is a great piece of kit. So, cutting the frets for this guitar, what we need to do is, we're going to be fretting over the binding, so we need to remove some of the tang here underneath. And I'll get my hand behind it if I can to show you, and you should be able to see there. And I need to cut this end and this end, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to be using my tang nipper, this one here. Now this one doesn't cut exactly flush, but it cuts well enough. So what we do is it's a matter of getting the fret in place, lining it up. I've got my glasses on so I can't see very well. I've got that wrong way around, that's why. I just need to get that sat in there and give it a nip like so. And that's it. And that one cut, you see, it's cut that bit off there. Can you see behind my finger? It's cut that nib off there. And what we're going to do is we're going to see where we need to be on the other side. I'm going to cut a small amount off that side. Not as much as this side, I cut a little bit too much off that side. And see where we are. There you go, and that's how it works. Well, more or less there with that one. Then I'm going to use my Stumac. Let me just move this back a little bit. Stumac cutters. These are brand new. Well, they're not brand new, but I've already used them. And we're just going to cut the fret at the end there. These bits out of the way. And you see, each side I've cut here and here. That leaves us just enough to sit inside the binding. When that's pressed in, it may press out a little bit, so I'm just going to trim a tiny little bit more off this end. Now I'll be gluing these things in as well. I've just ordered some super glue gel off of Amazon Prime. It won't be here till tomorrow, so I can't do this job till tomorrow, but that now fits in there perfectly. Shall I zoom in a little bit? Let me zoom in a little bit and you'll get more of an idea. I'm just going to alter the camera angle for you guys. There you go. You see, with that tang removed each side, that fits just inside the binding. I'm just going to take a little bit off this edge as well, because it's a little bit wider than I need it to be. But we are dealing with very small amounts here, and that looks pretty good. And that is now inside the binding. And what I'll do is we'll get some super glue gel in there, and when it's in there we're going to press these all in. So that's that one done. So we're going to move on to the next one. I'm going to show you a couple while I'm here. Now that's quite a bit wider than I need it to be. So I'll just nip a little bit more off the edge there. Okay, so you see where we're going. Now what I'm also going to do is, I've not shown what I'm going to trim off a little bit underneath the fret tang. I'll show you what I mean exactly in a minute. This is not adjusted right. That's better. I've not used these for a while. I've still not got them adjusted right. There you go, and that's better. Now we're cutting a lot more. That's great, that's where I need it to be. So what I'm going to do with this is just keep checking back. Got plenty of excess there. Go back in. Keep checking every cut. That's very, very close to where I need it to be. Could just take a little bit more from this side. What I went to show was, when we're here, got a little bit of excess of the fret. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a file with a straight edge, with a safe edge there. This is my number 4 cut file, Swiss made, and this will just remove that little bit of extra there that sits over the binding, and it doesn't take a lot of work. It's just nice to get rid of that bit using the safe edge. There's no filing, no teeth on that edge. And here you see the fret is now ready to go. It's all smooth now, so we're going to check that one again. And that one's going to be perfect in that slot, so we'll do the same there. We'll just nip right up to the edge. So each fret is going to be precision cut for the slot. And the same again here, I didn't do this one. There's a tiny bit of material left just underneath there. I'm just going to take the file using the safe edge there so we can't cut into anything that we don't want to cut into, and we're just going to remove that bit, and that is now smooth underneath. I'm going to do the same this side. So this is the precision and care we do with the frets. Each fret will get the same level of care because we want the job to be perfect. And this is one of 4 refrets I've got in at the moment. But that's beautiful. So that's frets 1 and 2 done. I'll just do one more. And again, we'll look again. I've got quite a bit of excess we need to remove from this one. But make a couple of cuts and go and check your work. Right, we still need to remove more from there, but the good thing about that is we're first going to nip the ends up because this is quite a bit wider than it needs to be. And that is tidying the fret up nicely. Just a little bit more can come off there. So we are precision cutting each fret. And that's still a little bit more off that one. Keep checking back. That's perfect. And that's the third one done. So all we need to do again with this is file that little bit. And we're removing these tang edges here because the fret is going to be overlapping the binding. Like I say, I'm going to be clamping each of these in. I do have a brand new press that works over the body as well. I've used it a couple of times from GMC in Wales. It's going to make this part, pressing frets into here, a lot easier. But all the rest we can do with a hand clamp. I've got a new clamping tool from Canada as well. So there you go, that's the first 3 cut. I have more to cut, so I'll get them all done off camera. Once they're done, tomorrow when when everything arrives, the glue and everything, we'll come and get these all glued and clamped in. So today I'll mostly be working with glue. I'm going to be gluing the frets in on this one today, pressing them in, gluing them with super glue gel. Don't know how well this comes out of the dispenser, but it's supposed to come out clean and not messy, which I hope is true. I've used this before with good results, and I want to be going into the slots, but before I do anything I'm going to remove this strap pin because I need to get this guitar flat on the bass when I'm pressing frets in. Don't want to be pressing stuff with this strap pin and putting pressure down on the strap pin and getting it burst through the guitar. So we are going to just remove the strap pin. All the little jobs I'll do, for instance, we'll check all the tuners or machine heads. These all seem to be tight. This is a Korean made Gretsch, this one. Don't know the model because the F-holes are covered. And I'm not dragging everything out of there to find out the model number, so I'll ask the client what it is. And these tuners, I'll just give a little nip. That's stiff enough, that's stiff enough, stiff enough, stiff enough. Little nip on that one, that's fine, that's fine, that's fine, that's fine. Little nip on that one, that's now fine. Quite happy to put frets in without any chip repair. There's a couple of tiny chips down this end. You're not going to see them once the frets are in. It's not going to make any difference. I'm concerned the wood is a little brittle, a little dry, so we may struggle getting some of the frets in. But I'm sure we'll be okay. it may be an idea to get some oil soaked into the slots. I'll decide on that in a few minutes, and that'll make the difference. That'll be the difference between it being finished this week or next week. I have in the past soaked the slots with oil just to soften the slots up a little, so they accept the frets better. I'm just checking these machine heads are all nice and tight. They need to be just nipped up tight, they don't need to be tightened stupidly. They are all good, so that's the tuners all taken care of. So, frets wise, I do have a new fret press. I'm going to freestand on here to press these frets in. It will mean I have to support the guitar from underneath. A little bit fiddly because I won't be bolting it to the table. It should be bolted to the table. But I'm going to get that all set up. And once that's set up, I'll bring you back in and we'll crack on and get things moving. A little bit of a change of plan regarding the frets on this Gretsch. Now, because my new fret press, this great piece of kit that accepts of the width of the body, is not tall enough to get the Gretsch under there because it's a semi-acoustic, which is only really for electric. So it's a great piece of kit, so I can't use it. So because I can't press the frets in over the body area, I'm going to hammer them in. Now, hammering them in is slightly more difficult because you're not doing applied regular pressure that causes the same pressure along the whole width of the fret. You're just tapping bits in, and as you tap one side, another bit might pop out. So what I'm going to have to do is, because of that, I'm going to reduce the width of the tangs on the frets I've already cut, only on the ones over the body because I'm gluing them in. So what I need to do is I need to remove these barbs, not remove them, but make them less pronounced because they stick out quite a bit, and I'm going to remove some of it. And I have this great tool from Stumac for doing just that job, and it's got a curve, and these are 2 files, and you set your width using this Corvin's ear. And what we can do is we can take a fret, we can drop it in there, and we can file off, and it more or less matches the radius, you see. How good is that? But we can remove some of the barbs, and when we need to remove more, we take the feeler gauge and we loosen everything, and we go with a slightly less feeler gauge, so we'll go find another one. Look, this is a 0.32, and I'm going to drop it to something like 0.3 or 0.28. Let's take it to 0.3 there, and I like to do it around about 90 degrees so it sits in the mechanism a little bit easier, a little bit better. And we're just going to take this like so. We've got the 0. Now we've got the 0.3, and we're going to slide this between the 2 files like so. We tighten up, and we're slightly less now, and then we can go in again. And I would stand this in a vise, it makes it easy to work. And normally you'd do this with a full length of a fret wire rather than do a small piece like this, because a small piece like this is going to be more difficult to work. I mean, it's really difficult to move at the moment. It's probably a little bit too tight, but you get the idea of how that works. So I'm going to remove just a little bit of the barb, and when I hammer these in, they'll hammer in a little bit easier because I'm going to be putting super glue in there. Now the super glue I use is this fantastic stuff here. It's got a special squeezer, and it's a no clog method, and you squeeze it and it just puts a small blob, and it is a nice thin line. You get it right in the fret, so I'm going to be using that. Now this is my old one, I've had this well over a year and it's still squeezing out, so it's absolutely fantastic stuff. It's £4 a tube or a bottle, and it's worth every penny because I hate super glue, I hate using it, but this stuff is fantastic, and it'll go in your fret slot and it'll drop inside. And you just need to gently tap your fret in and tap it all across. I'm not going to clamp them, but I'm going to get a good bond with the glue, and I'm sure, in fact I'm certain, I can seat these perfectly over the radius, because the radius does match the radius on the fingerboard. So that's going to make the job quite a bit easier. A little bit extra work to do. I thought I was going to waste this fret wire because I'd already pre-bent it, but I forgot that this has already got a bent file on there. So yeah, so that's made the job, you know, it's no more difficult than it was going to be anyway. So we can crack on with it and get it done. The first one, I have spread some glue along the slot. I've got as much inside as I can. I don't want to go metal glue, I've probably got more in there than I'm going to need. I'll just wipe away any excess from the blade, because I'm using the blade again. That is just one squeeze from the tube of glue, or from a bottle of glue. And I've got the first fret now. I've filed these down to 0.028 of an inch. The tangs, remove some tang from the edge of this, so this should go in quite a bit easier than the ones I'm going to squeeze in a little bit later. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just make sure we're up to the edge. I'm just going to gently tap in with a hammer. I'm supported underneath the guitar. And that looks to be all the way in. I can't press them in. So I'll just gently keep tapping them until they are all the way in. And that looks to be seated pretty well. In fact, it looks to be seated very well. A little bit of squeeze out on this side. I'm just going to get my thumb in there. I'm not worried about the squeeze out. If need be, I will scrape it all off later. I just need to make sure I'm supported under the guitar and these frets are properly. So I'm going to go now with the brass side. Again, not tapping as hard as you might think I am. And that is very nicely seated. It's as low as it's going to go, I think. If I don't like how it's seated, I will remove it and go again. I do know that the nut slots are deep enough. So I think that is looking pretty good. I'm not going to get any better than that. I'm going to check the radius. If I don't like it, I'm going to pull the fret and we'll go again. So let me see where we are with the radius gauge, which I'm just going to pull out of the toolbox. Always going to be the most difficult part is fretting over the body area. I hope that's not my car. It's car alarm just gone off. That is a lovely 14-inch radius, so we are there with that. So I can't do any better than that. It may just be a trick of a light. I think it's seated as well as I'm going to get it. So I'm going to take it from there. I'm going to hammer a few in, see where we are. I have left. I've gone right down to 15, so I've done the first, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 frets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So after this, they'll all be pressed in with the hand press. So we've left plenty of room there. So I'm going to crack on, get some more in, and we'll come back and have a little look again later. I got 4 frets in. I wasn't happy with the way they were going. It seems that the tang's either too long or the slots aren't deep enough. So I've pulled them. I've got a little bit of chipping I'm going to have to repair. But I wasn't happy with the frets, so I pulled them. I'm going to look at using another fret wire. I have many fret wires in stock. I have a Gretsch G5422 fret wire in stock. I think it's got a shorter tang. I'm going to recut these slots. I'm going to tidy everything up. I'm going to get the old glue off I've just been using. Just wasn't, there's something just not right about it. It just didn't, they weren't going in right. And it was like the radius, I was compromising the radius slightly, and I don't want to do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to scrape away the old glue. I'm going to slightly sand the board. I'm going to recut all of these slots to make sure they're as deep as they need to be. If I'm not happy, it's best to stop wire at the start or at the beginning rather than get it all done, then come back and think, don't like how that's turned out, and end up doing it again. It just wasn't going right, so I'm not convinced I'm going to go with this fret wire. The glue was fine, knocking them in was fine. It's just something didn't feel right about it. I'm going to grab my saw if I can find it. What I'm going to do is, every time I'm going to resaw these slots. Now you know I've spent plenty of time and I've done them before, but I'm going to make sure they're clean and deep enough. I'm going to get this clamped up. I'm actually going to put this on the jig so it doesn't wobble about, because you can see it wobbling about at the moment, and we don't want that. I've already cut through the binding in a couple of places, which I didn't want anyway. So I've got to repair that in a little while, which I can invisibly repair that, that's not a problem, it's just you don't want the hassle of having to do it. So I think I'm better off getting this jigged up on the Stumac neck jig. We'll resaw these slots, we'll sand the board, and we'll do it again. It's going to take more time, but I don't mind doing that, I want to get it perfect. I've had the oil in the slots for 24 hours. And I know not everyone agrees with my method, but this is the way I've always done it, just to soften up the slots. And I'm blowing out the excess oil. And you'll see it just starts to drip over the sides. And the oil is not going to hurt the guitar neck. See there, look. But that is now going to accept the frets much easier. Now, I've not cut the frets yet. I'm not bothered about any of the spillage we've got on the guitar. This will all wipe off. I'll let that dry for a short while. I'm going to get the fret wire bent to the radius, 14-inch radius. And I'm going to get it all cut to size again. Now this does have a shorter tang. So I know that this tang will fit the depth of the slot. I'm just going to see where we are, and that's taking up to the first line. Well, here we can bury right down to the second line. So we know that those slots are deep enough and like I said, I'm going to glue them in. So there's still plenty of work to do, but these slots are quite tight. Anyway, let me crack on, get these cut again to shape. The ones I cut before, I won't discard, I'll save for another job in the future. They'll come in handy somewhere down the line. This is my Stumac fret wire, it's the last of the Stumac fret wire because the other stuff I've got I'm going to be selling. But anyway, that's another story for another day. So going again with this wonderful tool, and it is two files basically clamped together using a feeler gauge to give me the correct width that I need. And the feeler gauge I've got in there at the moment is 0.28 millimeters, like that. That should be enough. So what I'm doing is with this, or what this tool is for reducing the width of the tang. Let me just get tightened up. Reducing the width of the tang on the fret wire. And I've got it in a couple of vices. Again, a couple of Stumac vices together here. This just helps. And what I'm doing is I'm removing some of the tang, the width of the tang on some of the fret wire. Not all of it, just some of it. Because the tang is a little bit wide. So I'm going to be hammering the frets in. So it's just a matter of going over. Now some bits are, I've got a little bit just bent over too much. So I just need to straighten the edge of the fret wire because I've cut it myself. So I'm just straightening these end bits. Just so it goes inside the files. And I'm just removing a little bit of the tang, not too much. And the bits I'm going to be using at the body end are already done, so I don't really need to remove them. So I'm going to use a piece I've already done. These three pieces I'm going to be using at the end of the guitar. There's two I've already done, and I've took it down to 0.28 of an inch. It's just a matter of getting it in there and filing off some of the tang. You got the fence. You notice there is a curve there. And it's just fantastic, and that is enough. The fret slots are quite tight on this guitar, so I don't need the full width of the tang. Because I'm going to be hammering them in over the body also. Now, like I say, or like you've already seen, I have soaked some oil in the fret slots just to soften up those slots a bit. I've blown it all back out and let it dry for 24 hours. And in the meantime, I'm going to cut these frets. I'm going to cut each one to size, like I did on my last lot. I'm going to make sure the radius is right. In fact, I'll turn the camera around and I'll show you now. It'll be a lot easier to show you than explain. So, I've run them through fret bending machine, and we're just going to recheck everything. Everything looks to be about right. And I like to go both ways. I should just have enough fret wire. If not, I've got plenty more in stock. This is the Stumac fret wire. And it's got a shorter tang length than the Synton stuff I was going to be using. So just running all this through. I want to keep these three separate because these have not been filed. The two filed pieces I want to use over the body of the guitar. Now, regarding the body side of the guitar, I'm letting it dry 24 hours because of the oil I've had in there. So I'll be cutting these frets, and you know how I'm going to cut the frets. I'm going to measure each one. So what I'm just going to do is I'm going to mark up these two pieces on the base of the tang. You're not going to see it, but I'm going to know this is the piece that's been filed. Or these are the pieces that have been filed. Got quite a few refrets on the go at the moment. That's why I'm not doing a great lot of other work. Though I do have two guitars coming in tonight for setups from a friend of mine, ball-struck guitarist Jamie Hunter. So we'll be down at about 6 o'clock. But that is it. So you've already seen me cutting frets, so I'm not going to repeat that. Now I'm going to do the same type of thing, putting them in here. I'm going to cut each one to width, precision cut, and I'll be back when I'm ready to put them in the guitar. So for the second time, I'm going to be cutting frets for this guitar. I'll be using my brand new Stumac nib cutter. Because we're going to need to work over the binding, so we need to basically remove just these end bits here. So what we'll do is I will measure where I need to cut the fret, and I'm going to cut plenty of excess. I'm not going to be trying to save extra fret wire. So like so, we're going to cut there, we're going to remove the tang. And this does remove really, really well. Look at that. That's the bit I've just removed behind this one. And it's fantastic. Some we need to file, some we don't. Just to remove that little bit on the, see a little bit down the centre there, just below my finger, and we can take a file with a safe edge, and we can just remove that little bit of excess there. We could leave that on, it's not going to make any difference to when it's sat in the guitar. It will just press into the binding, but I do like to be exact. So we're going to have a look, we're going to give it a measure. We have too much tang on there. What I'll do is I'll true up the end of the fret, each end, so we've got a nice square or flat bit. Checking the width. Width is fine. We need to remove some more tang each side. Take your time with this. And just keep going back and having a measure. I need to remove more tang this side. And again, you get a really nice confident cut with this tang nibber. And again, that's beautiful. We're just going to keep checking that we are now inside. Now with the tang, some of the tang removed, we are going to get a better fit. Now that is beautiful. Just going to press in nice. Press that bit on the fingers. All I need to do is tap that in. I will be gluing them in, like I said, like I mentioned. Just going to make sure we have enough tang removed, because as I knock these in, they're going to widen slightly. I think we're going to be absolutely fine there. That's going to be perfect. I'm very much liking that. So that's the first one cut. We'll stick it in the delivery 22. So we stick that in slot 22. So first one of 22 cut. We go again. I'm going to crack on and get the rest of them cut. It's going to take me a while. Always, like I say, we always cut more than we need because we've got quite a bit of trimming to do. Let me just show you another one. As long as I get 4 pieces per strip, I'll be happy. Cut that a lot wider than I need to be. That's great because we can just remove some of the end and we can true up. We can true up the edge of the fret. What we do is we just nip up, true up the edge, just remove that gnarly bit at the end. We give it a measure. And there we go, we need to remove more tang. So it's nice and steady. Take a measure. It looks pretty good. Again, and that's the second one cut. We are a little bit wider than we need to be. I'll true these up a little bit more as I go along. Just remove a little bit from the end, each end, just to try and get it more or less the exact width. If we do take much off, we'll just move a fret down with it, but that's perfect again, right there. That's number 21 done. So I'm going to crack on and get these done. I probably need to do another 6, and all the rest of them I can get in with the press. So I'm only going to hammer in the first 8 frets. It makes things a little bit easier, but this will be the most critical part. It's why I've removed some of the tang on each one. So I'll come back with an update in a while. So even though the way I'm knocking these frets in may seem a little bit unconventional, I am supported under the heel, right there, and I'm supported just ever so slightly here. Doesn't really need that support there because the support here is what that really matters. I'm going to be hammering in the frets, and I've got the first one placed in. Now I did say I was going to super glue these in, but this one, the first one, I'm not. I'm going to test run. It's slightly over radiused, and I'm using a nylon side of my fretting hammer, and you'll see, I'm not going to zoom in, but you'll see I have the tangs nipped just at the edges, so we are overlapping. And I just want to leave enough each side because when I knock these down, they're going to slightly spread outwards. But let's see where we go. I'm not going to glue it in as such right now, but I may drop or wick some super glue in there once it's in. So it's just a matter of gently tapping it. Because I want these to seat better than they did last time, and that is seated beautifully, I can tell. And that certainly has seated a lot better than the first lot of fret wire. So I'm going to go now with the metal side. Back to the nylon side and just I'll be quite happy just to wick in some super glue, but that has gone in beautiful. I have no complaint there whatsoever. So I don't think I need to glue them in. That's gone in really, really nicely. Happy with that. And what I'm going to do is I'll wick some super glue in there. Not right now, I'll do it when all the frets are in, just so they don't move. I'm quite happy with that. In fact, I'm very happy with that. We'll do the same on the next one. Again, quite happy with how that's seated. And again, no complaint there. May just want to tap that way a little. Again, gone in really, really nicely. No complaints. And it certainly does make it easier having just, you know, taking a little bit off that tang. They're still going to hold, they're not going to go anywhere. Very nicely seated. What I can do is check how they lie when I've knocked them in, and they are perfectly level. Not hitting these hard, you don't need to whack them in. They will find their level and radius, and just keep checking. A little bit of a rock there on the centre of that one, so we'll just tap that one back in. Doesn't matter because we're going to be doing a level across all of the frets anyway. They don't always go in perfectly level, but these very encouraging. Much better than the first go. I think the tang was just too long, and they have gone in beautifully, all four so far. Very nice. We'll just keep checking. Beautiful. Like I say, you do not need to whack these things in. Just make sure you're going enough to overlap the binding. So not a lot to say. Also, with me removing the width of some of the tangs, it stops the neck wanting to bow over. Because sometimes with straight neck, with the tang being wide, you sort of widen everything and it can bow backwards. Not always, but in some cases. get to the stage or the area where I can just press these in from the next two. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, we have 7. 8th one going in. And from here on, I get the fret press underneath because we're at the heel of the neck. I have a fret press that will press at the heel on the curve there. So the other ones, I did not remove any of the tang. They all look very well seated. No drama. That is really good. So very encouraging, very happy with how this has worked. A little bit of height there and there. We'll just knock these down again. Doesn't matter if we are left with a little bit of a high spot. We are going to be leveling the frets anyway. It's all about the frets being seated on the fingerboard and not going anywhere. Once I've wicked some super glue in there, which I'll show you, I'm going to do that in a moment, they're not going to be moving. So the rest of the frets, I'm not going to put in right now. I'm going to wick some super glue under all of these frets. They are level. I mean, bar that little bit there, these are spot on level. Very, very encouraging. So yes, I had to take the old frets out, some of them, and I had to redo them, use a different fret wire. Sometimes is the case, you know, especially when you're hammering over somewhere. I prefer not to have to hammer frets in. I prefer to get them all pressed in, but this has gone really well. So wicking in some super glue, it's just a matter of getting the runny stuff, this stuff here, with a little pipette thing on the end. I'll put a new one on there. I'm going to get the guitar stood up and I'm just going to wick some super glue and it will draw itself in. Chances are if I just wick some in now, it'll draw itself straight in anyway because we are at a slight angle. Just a bead there. Any excess I'll scrape up later. I'm going to stand the guitar up in a moment. Anything that gets on the frets doesn't bother me in the slightest. There you go. And I'm just going to stand the guitar up like so, and I'm going to leave it there for a few minutes. And I'm going to stick on something on YouTube and I'll let that wick itself in and I'll come back later with an update. With the first 8 frets hammered in and glued, we're now able to use the hand press to press the rest of the frets in. So because I'm just where the heel joins the neck here, I'm going to use this little attachment here, a piece of rubber that just slides on, fits on. It doesn't fix on there. I've got a 12-inch caul in there. I have the frets pre-cut. I have a glue at hand, and to make sure the glue goes where I want it, I'm going to use a cocktail stick just to put it in positions where I may need it. Now this glue is a squeeze type affair, and I'm just going to 3 dots there, there, and there, and that's as much glue as I'm going to use. I'm going to just coax it to where I want it. Any squeeze out, residue, what have you, that squeezes out we'll scrape off later, like we're going to do with all of these. Don't really need to clean that, but I'll get some tissue and do that in a moment. So again, support as much as we can. I'm just going to gently tap these in with my fretting mallet, only gently. because the clamp is going to do all the work. So we make sure we are to the edges on both sides. And we're just going to gently tap in. And once we are in position, we are going to go with the press. We're going to position the press central to the fret, and we are going to clamp. And that's not enough clamp, need a bit more pressure than that. So we're going to tighten like so, and that certainly is enough pressure. Ease off just a little, ease off just a little, ease off just a little, and we are clamped in. And now we're going to unclamp and we're going to tighten again, and we are going to clamp tight. And there you go. I'm going to leave that a couple of minutes. And that is as difficult as it is. Let me just pull out there so you can see. There you go. So that as difficult as the job is. I'm going to leave it a couple of minutes before I put the next one in. If I could grab some tissue, which I'm going to do right now. Maybe I should have got some kitchen roll. This is a bit overkill for what I need. In fact, let's see if we've got anything laying in the bin right now. I do not. I do. I have some just laying down there. Only a small piece. There's no point removing a whole piece. And what I can do here is get in and just wipe any residue of super glue. I can just get in at it there. And there you go. And that saves me having to clean up so much later on. I know I've got to scrape a lot on the 8 frets I hammered in because I did use an excess of glue. I didn't use this squeezy gel type, I used just a runny type. So yeah, I've got quite a bit of clean up to do later on, but these frets are going in beautifully. There's no reason to think that they won't go in beautifully. And I think we will be in with that one. And let's have a look at it. And that certainly looks like it's in to me. It's not going to go in any better. Beautiful. And anything that gets on the frets is not going to bother me in the slightest because we were polishing the frets. So that one's in. It does almost look like there's a gap there. I think that's just because of a light shine on it. There are no gaps there. I will take a fret rocker and have a quick look. See where we are. Still a little bit of height on that one there, but that's not going to worry us. So there you go, first one in. So I'm going to crack on. I think I can now just about change this and put on the correct clamp, which is this one for under the neck. And I'm going to crack on and get these done off camera. Now this one, you see, fits on there like so. So we're just going to check. Nip back just a little, give myself room. Just going to check how much of a clamp I've got on there, and I've got a lot of a clamp on there, more than I need. That seems to be about right. So I'm going to crack on, get these in, and I'll come back and show you the results a little bit later. Got at it on this Gretsch, and what I've been doing this afternoon is I've scraped the fingerboard. I've removed all of the glue from the edges of each of the frets, and with steel wool I've not polished, but I have cleaned the board using steel wool, mainly in this direction, just to get rid of any crap on there. What I'll be doing is I'll be spraying it with some naphtha, just cleaning it all up, ready for doing, well I won't be doing that just yet actually, I'll be doing the bevels first. Once I've done the bevels, I'm cleaning the fingerboard up properly. Probably going to remove this pickup as well so I can get in here, because I need to do the bevels this way and that pickup is going to be in the way, so it's got to come out. And once that's done, we're going to get everything taped up, we're going to get the frets levelled, get them recrowned, get them crowned once they've been levelled, and get them all polished up and what have you. So that's where I'm today, but let me just give you a quick glimpse of the fingerboard. Really looking very, very nice. The frets are all gapless. We sealed them really nicely by getting plenty of glue in there, super glue. These will not be going anywhere in the next 20 years. If they have to come out, I picture the guy who has to get them out next time, but they've all come out with heat, but shouldn't need a refret. So onwards and upwards. Probably the most difficult part of this job, I mean there is hammering the frets in over the body which is difficult, but probably the most difficult part is beveling the fret edges and bringing them right up to the edge. And what I've done is I've ran a strip of 6mm tape right along the edge of the binding, because what I don't want to do is get the file in there and start scratching the lacquer off the binding, because that's going to be difficult to fix. And I don't spray here, so if I do spray I have to take it away. So what I've done is, I could have this on a neck jig, but it works just as well on the bench as long as you're careful. And for removing the main part of the overhang on the frets, I use a flat file with a safe edge. And this is from an angled 35-degree file I used to use, but I think 35 degrees is too much of a angle. I like to go more or less 10 or 15 degrees. So I do this by hand. So with the safe edge downwards, I've got everything taped up. There are about 8 layers of tape on this edge here. And the pickup's dropped right in. We're not going to damage anything there. And I do it by hand, just like this. And I take my time and I start at a slight angle. You see, with the safe edge down, we're not going to cut into anything on the guitar. Not that we would anyway, but just at a very slight angle. I file the edges. I'm holding with this hand, so I can do it one-handed. It's a super flat file, this. And when I get close to where I want to be, I'll look, see if I'm hitting the tape. If I'm hitting the tape, okay, that's absolutely fine. But what I'll do is I'll also square it up straight on the tape, just to get those edges right in, because it's going to be, it's not impossible, but it's quite difficult to get these edges right up to the binding, which I will do in the end. I will take the tape off later on when I'm using a finer cut file. I use a super smooth flat file, and I'll remove the tape to do so. We'll get it right up to the edges. But a job like this, you have to take your time. But there's the angle, look, that's about 5-degree bevel on there, probably 5, 6, 7-degree bevel. And it takes time. But we're certainly right up to the edge there. And that is a beautiful job. And we are just cutting into the tape, and that's fine again, because we're cutting into the tape, we're not cutting into the lacquer on the guitar. So I'm going to crack on down the whole length of the neck. And I'll do exactly the same on the other side. And once I've finished where I'm working there, I will go and grab my Swiss-made number 4 cut file, made by Valorbe. Beautiful piece of kit, this. And unfortunately it wasn't supposed to be super flat, but it's got a super flat edge on there, and it's super smooth and super sharp. Such a wonderful file. And what I'll do is, once the tape's off, I'll finish off with this file, and it'll give me a super smooth cut. I've got a safe edge again on the bottom there. I got it wrong way around there. Just make sure, yeah, there's a flat edge. I've got a safe edge on the bottom, so same again. And this will give me such a smooth cut. And I'm going to get right up to the very, very edge of the binding without going into the lacquer. I don't really need that much of a bevel. 5 degrees is enough for me, because that way you're getting more width, more bending width on your fret. So this is going to take me a good while to do this. I'm going to take the time, obviously. But look at that, we're right up to the edge. You can't even feel those frets at the edge anymore. So I need to get all the rest of these done. I have to flip the guitar around, do the other side. It's going to take me a good while. So I'm going to do it, carry on off camera. And as always, I will come back and show you the results. I've peeled away the tape from the binding, because I've done beveling this edge, and I've got as close as I can with the coarse file. And now with the smooth file, I'll show you exactly how I go on. I'll start at this end again, and I don't start at 90 degrees, I start at wherever the bevel is. So the bevel is there. And what I do is, once I've smoothed off enough from the bevel, I roll it over to 90 degrees. And if you watch the file, once you get to about 5-6 degrees, no longer cutting. It means I'm right up to the edge of the binding, which means I've not got into the binding and I don't have to go into the binding. So it's just a matter of getting enough on the bevel. Right, so once I go upright, that's it. So fantastic news is we've not gone into the gloss on the binding, which we don't do anyway. Just take our time. There you go. Not even cutting when we're vertical or upright. So we've got right at the very edge. I can't hardly feel those frets. I still feel a bit sharp because I've not rounded over these edges, but we are right up to the edge of the binding. The binding and the lacquer is all intact. We do have some tape residue off here we're going to have to clean off, but we've not gone into the body, we've not gone into the pickups. Now the pickup is sunk right in. Fortunately we've got really long screws on these, so I was able to do that. So that's that side done. I'm going to do exactly the same on this far side. I'm actually going to turn the guitar 180 degrees to do so. And what we'll do once all this is done, we're going to level the frets. We're not going to tape anything up, we're going to level the frets. Once they're level, we're going to tape up the fingerboard. And then we're going to come back in and we're going to get on with the rest of the work. But I like to level them without the tape on there because I can still keep checking how level the neck is using my notched straight edge over there. So I'm going to flip 180. I'm going to work this side doing exactly the same as I've just done. They're beautiful. And the bevel is only halfway between the edge of the guitar and the binding, so we've got an extra, at least an extra millimetre of bendable note or fret to use. I don't like to come right in over the binding because you lose it. Why not gain something if we can? We've got a lovely, I'd say probably a 10-degree bevel on there. That's enough for me. I like that. I do like nice wide frets. So like I say, I'm going to flip the guitar, turn it 180 degrees, I'm going to crack on, do this far side, or the near side to me, and once that's done we'll move on to the next part of the process. The neck on the jig, I was going to put it on the StewMac jig, but being as this jig was already out, I thought I'd get it on here. So we've got it on there, we've straightened up the neck, we've had to go a little bit backwards on the truss rod, just to give it a little bit of a spin. I've levelled the frets using I don't always do this, I've gone with a radius beam. Don't normally do that, but I want to do that just to get consistent radius along the whole length. And I've just got to remove a little bit more in the middle. We've got a couple of high spots. But I think we're just about where we need to be. So just check the ones that were high again. We only had a couple. That seems to have sorted that out. Still got a high spot there, and a high spot there, and a bit of a high spot there. So I'm going to take the file. Where the file is it here? Yes, it's here. Here it is. I'm going to take my Chris Allsop levelling file, diamond file. Great piece of kit this. And this doesn't mess about. It removes material. We are just about where we need to be. So everything's looking pretty good. Take a fret rocker, check those ones again, then we're going to check the whole lot. So let's see there, we are now level there, we're now level there and there, we're now level there. So let's check the whole lot while we're here. And because there's some coarse sandpaper on that radius beam, I'm going to level using, now we've done the radius, I'm going to level again. First going over with 400 grit, then going 240 grit, then going over with 400 grit, just to smooth these scratches off a bit. Make it easier to polish them later. We've still got to recrown the frets. A little bit of a high spot right there. So we'll get rid of that. Happy with how these frets have gone in. In fact, happy with the whole job. It was a little bit difficult first. I removed the first fret wire I was going with and opted for the Stumac. Slightly narrower than the original fret wire, but it's still high, but it looks fantastic. Because they're all glued in, they look superb. So that is the frets level. So what we need to do now is mark them all up with Sharpie, permanent marker. I'll just hit the binding there, get rid of that. That's how it gone, that's fine. Because it is permanent marker, we don't be marking anything up. Get these marked up. I'm going to come across with a levelling beam in a minute. I've enjoyed doing this one. I mean, I enjoy doing them all. It's just something about this one. So, without doing any explaining, you know what a levelling beam is. Crimson Guitar's levelling beam, 400 grit on the top, 240 grit on the base. We're going to just run over. This is basically to remove the deeper of the scratches. We're just following the radius, and we should get all these silver tops very quickly. And we are all silver topped on the frets. Beautiful. Still going to go a little bit more just to even out, because I can see where they need to be evened out a little bit. They look wonderful to me. So we are all silver top, take my word for it. And because we've got on with the 240 grit, we're going to finish off with the 400, which is even smoother. It means all the scratches are virtually removed. So I need my pen again. Why don't I have my marker pen? It's over here. Grab my Sharpie again. Pen them all. You will hear my tumble dryer in the background. Sorry about that, but I work from home. We're normal people. We need to dry clothes, as you do. The wife, she's off work, same as me. We've both got a week off together. My wife's a teacher. She's got a half-term week, or half-term couple of weeks. So we're both off. It coincides with both off this week, which is brilliant. She's zipped off into Nottingham, do some shopping, and meet some friends. Bear with me a second. Another little bit of ink spillage there. We don't want that. We don't want that. There you go. Job is a good one. All penned up nicely. 400 grit again. Just smoothing off these frets, following the radius, not pressing hard, letting the beam do the work. And that is the frets all nicely levelled. So you can do a little bit more on this end because there's a couple of black marks. It does slightly, there's some natural fall away on this, which I actually quite like. I'm not against it at all. So a little bit of extra work up this end. And there you go, we are all silver. We need these meticulously level because Tony loves a really, and I mean a daft low action. I'm talking 1mm at the 12th. And we are going to get that. And that is it, that is beautiful. So we have a nice even spread of how much material I've removed. I'm just going to check the radius on everything. Everything looks fantastic. That looks really, really good. So very happy with that. Lovely fret job. So we are ready now to get this all taped up and move on to the next part of the process, which will be to recrown and then polish. I will need, however, to clean my fingerboard, so I'm going to get some naphtha on there, get it all cleaned up. Once that's done, I'll get it all taped up. I'm going to leave the neck on, I'll leave the guitar on there, and I'll recrown the frets with it in this position. So I'll give you a little update in a short while. Crowning the frets. You've all seen me do this many times before, but for those of you that haven't, I don't always have a guitar on the G, but today it is on the G, and it makes things a lot easier. But you don't have to be on an neck G, you can just have the guitar just on a normal stand on a bench. Relatively well supported. And I use two files for crowning, both StewMac files. I have a Z file, which I call a Z file, we'll probably call it a Z file in America. And I have a crowning file. They're both diamond files, they're both well used in this workshop. And let me just explain how they work. Well, your Z file, two cuts at the bottom, you can see there it has a short, sharp, very much angled cut, and it has a more shallow but longer, shorter cut. That's a shallow, that's a deep drop. So you've got a short cut, a long cut, creates two different cutting angles, and if you turn it 180 degrees, it's got exactly the opposite, same cuts but in opposite direction. And it must have been planned, but what this file does is it'll reshape your flat fret into a crown fret, and it will not touch the top of a fret. Why do we not want it to touch the top of a fret? Well, we just leveled all of them. So if we can come and rebuild the crown but not touch the top of a fret, it just creates a crown for us, and all the frets are still going to be level because we're not touching the top. So really simple to use. And like I say, it's a diamond file. Great piece of kit this, because I've no problem with this fret wire. This fret wire being 18% nickel silver, semi-hard, quite hard fret wire, but in the past I've been using 25% and or stainless steel. So a lot easier on the tools. And flip it over again. I'm looking for a nice thin black line down the centre of that fret, probably about 0.3mm wide. And that is exactly what I have. So I've rebuilt with it flat on the top, we're now crowned. Got a nice thin black line going down the centre, and then I'm going to be using this file. Again, it's a convex file. Is it convex the right one when it's curled underneath? Diamond file again. And I'll use this, I don't go across the top of this because this will touch the top, I just go on the edges just to true up any sharpness, which is not going to be any, and I can just also just gently roll over those edges just to soften them up a little. So straight over at an angle, both sides, give me a nice thin black line down the centre. It's just made that more consistent. And then if I want to be picky, which I do want to be picky, another StewMac file. There you go. That way it's got a safe edge, and this is just for rounding over these edges, just to soften them up. 2 strokes here and 1 across the top, and that's 3 strokes, and that is now super smooth. And I can do, and I can't do the same this side. I can do it from this side, but it's easier to do it the other side, but I'll do it just to show you. And this is just to soften up those edges on the crown. It's soften that crown up. We'll now have a beautiful rolled over fret, so it's not going to be sharp. Still going to roll these over with sandpaper later, but that one is done. Got a lovely thin black line down the centre. Keeping that black line down the centre ensures that we have not removed any of the height of the fret. If we've not removed the height, the frets could not have dropped. If they can't have dropped, they're all still perfectly level, and they are. So I'm going to crack on, get these done. I'll show you one more. Something we always do as well when we've done a fret is we always give the file a wipe, because there will be residue on there. And that's the Z file, or the Z file as I call it. So exactly the same again. Flip it 180. Beautiful thin black line down the centre there. I will take a photograph and show you exactly how it looks. But let me just Finish it up with this one, give it some white, didn't give it a white last time. Over the edge, over this edge. I'm going to take this file and we'll just give it the 3 strokes, and one that way, one this way, and one just over the top, just to remove that sharpness on that burr there. Same again this side. And over the top. And that's it, beautiful. I'm going to take you a picture showing you how the fret looks. And then I'm going to crack on. So there you go. So there's the first one done. Try and get not too much light on there. And there you go. And there is the first fret. Oh, that's the second fret with a thin black line down the centre. We are now recrowned, where it was flat on the top, we're now recrowned. Beautiful thin black line there. And that is it. So I'm going to crack on, get the rest of these done. And I will come back and give you an update a little bit later. Polishing the frets. Nobody's favourite job, though can be therapeutic. So, how I do it. Whenever frets are ready for polishing, I have 7 grits of paper, 400 through to 2000. So you've got 400, 600, 800, 1000, 1200, 1500, 2000. Nice big pieces here. There's your 400. Lovely big pieces, plenty on there. I always don the glove, cut this thumb out and cut the 2 fingers out because I'm only polishing with these 2 fingers really. And there's plenty there to do 24 frets. And I'm just going to use a 400. I used to start with 600 but now I start with 400 because 400 will remove these deep scratches. We're only polishing this way. And that is it. And I'll go over the top and I'll come over the sides and I'll just move on to the next one. And once I've used these 7 different grits of paper, I'll finish off with finest grade or super fine steel wool. So I'm looking at this first piece just to get the deep scratches out, or the deeper the scratches out. So this is going to take me a while. I can't remember any frets. I think it might be a 24 fret guitar. So 24 times 8. 192 polishes I've got to do. So I'm going to crack on. Get some, probably get all done tonight. Dinner's ready in a few minutes, for wife informs me. So when I'm going to come back up once I've had my dinner, I don't know, we'll see. I'll give myself some time to do this. You never rush this job. I will get arm ache in a bit. So I'm going to crack on, go through the grits, finish off with steel wool, and I'll bring you back in and show you the results a little bit later on. Just finishing up with these frets, and it's 10 past 10 here. I started these at 8 o'clock and I'd already done 1 polish, so this has taken me 2 hours and 15 minutes to polish these frets up, and I've gone with 7 different grits of paper, finishing up with superfine steel wool. Like I say, 2 hours 15 minutes just on polishing the frets, so don't tell me you're not getting any money's worth when I do your refret. But yeah, just finished up on the frets, and it's just a matter of the final polish is just getting over with some superfine steel wool, pinching over the side, going each side, getting into the corners, and going over the top again and pinching over. And that gives us this wonderful, wonderful glass-like finish to the frets. Like I say, I've gone over with 7 grits of paper, 400, 600, 800, 1000, 1200, 1500, 2000 grits of paper, and finished up with superfine steel wool. I used to, in the old days, used to get me Dremel on it and get a go with this stuff, Peak. I've had that tube 5 years, stopped using it, bought it 5 years ago, stopped using it for 4 years, 10 months ago. Don't really need it, don't really need any of that stuff, it's only going to come off anyway. So if you can get a polish like this, just using sandpaper and steel wool, that's what you want to be doing. And that's what I've done. And these frets are spectacular. I'm going to hold the guitar up to the camera. Don't forget, these frets are brand new, I've put these in. But look at that finish on those frets. They're like glass and they're super smooth, there's no sharp edges. And they are just super, super smooth and super shiny. I've had all the grits, and that's it. So I'm ready to peel off the tape. I'm going to clean the guitar down, and once that's all done, we've got the nut, which I've lost. Don't know what I've done with it. I might just go and buy a new nut, new 12-string nut. Hopefully I can find it and stick it back on. It should be alright. Otherwise, this guitar's going to take a bit longer. I'll have to add another day on there, and I've got to wait for it to arrive. But whatever. Need to put a nut on there, get all this tape off, get everything all cleaned up, polished up. Notice I've got all the holes covered, so any dust on there I need to get rid of. I'm going to blow off with some compressed air, because there could be some iron filings on there or what have you. And we really don't want that kind of stuff getting into the finish of the guitar, because I'll be sending it away for a deep polish, and I don't want to be doing that. But anyway, let's get to blow out. This guitar is dirty anyway. It was dirty when it got here. A lot of this stuff on it was already on the guitar. Let's give it a good blow out. But yeah, fantastic thing. So more work to be done. I shall come back and give you updates as and when. But the frets, delighted with how these have come out, and I always am. You know, but it does take time. But polishing these frets would take me 2 hours and 20 minutes. So there you go. I'm a little bit in limbo today because the work I want to do, I can't do. I'm still waiting for a nut on this, but what I've done is I've removed the tape, and I'm scraping the residue from the tape at the edge of the frets. So what I've done, I've already scraped both ways, and any collection of residue has gone right into the edge of the frets here. So just scraping away using a Stanley blade. And you probably won't see from where you are, but if I get in there, and I'll show you there, little bits of residue that collects under the frets or close to the frets. Most of it just scrapes away. You've got to be very careful, because you don't want to scoot up with the Stanley blade and scrape across the frets you've just installed and polished, because that defeats the object of a polishing you've already done. So there you go. So we're getting little bits. Here. I find that using a blade upside down works better. Using a blade right way up, because it's not going to go into the wood and stick in. So we'll just go with the upside down blade. Let's see. Bit of glue residue on that one. Now we would get a little bit of seep out on the glue, because as we press in, glue squeezes out. But what we're going to do with this is, once this is all done, I'm going to oil the fingerboard. All I'm waiting for is that nut to arrive, and we can get it glued in. The one I ordered before, I must have measured something wrong, because it wasn't wide enough for the neck. So it's no good. So I'll just save that. I'm not sending it back, because I've got to pack it, they won't give me money back. So I'll save it for a future project. But this is all going rather well. I've already done the rest of the frets all the way down here. And if my eye picks something up that I've missed, I'll go back like I've done with this one. So again, these are jobs I don't normally include on the video. There's a lot of stuff you don't get to see. If anyone ever says you don't seem to be doing a lot for your money, I don't film everything. Let me tell you now, people like me, we earn our money doing these guitars. Sometimes we barely make, or we don't even make, minimum wage, especially on these longer jobs. couple more to do. And we are pretty much done. Still need to clean the neck. Still got a little bit of polishing to do over here. Yeah, this is looking fantastic. Very happy with the refret. Of course, why wouldn't it be, you say? Well, exactly. But you know, we tend to have very high standards. We don't want guitars coming back to the workshop with an unhappy client. You know, that's the worst possible thing. So if you take your time with these jobs, it certainly saves time later. And that is the fingerboard all cleaned up, edge of the frets all cleaned up. I did glue these in, so anything that seemed to not seat particularly well, they all seat well, it's just sometimes it sorts me not deep enough, whatever. Everything, every space has been filled. I'm taking to all my fret jobs now, I'm gluing frets in on all guitar jobs. You might as well, there's no point not gluing them in. So just nitpicking now on this job. I'm actually scraping stuff that's not there. There's a little bit, I can feel some sticky residue there, so I need to go back in. And just pull back anything that's still on the fingerboard. Pull it up to the fret, then come again and scrape the fret, and you'll find you've got it all. And I think we are there. That, to me, my friends, looks to be it. So we are going to need to spray this with some lemon oil. Oh, well, you know it's lemon oil, it's mineral oil. Containing lemon essence to make it smell nice. But those frets and the spaces between frets look wonderful. Now there is some residue on a couple of the inlays, which I will rub off. A bit of damp cloth. Like I say, this all needs to be oiled up yet. A refret, very, very well done. I'm going to flip the guitar in a minute, just to check for any residue on the neck. And this is wiping up any residue that's on the binding, or on the top of the binding. I will give this a going over with some white spirit a little bit later. But that is looking pretty good. Now I'm going to get one more polish over the frets, just using this cloth. Just remove any residue that's on there. And the tape. I'll be talking to Tony about his guitar, so remember, I likes a really low action. We're going to get his action down to about 1mm along the whole length of the guitar from the 12th fret. Going to measure about 1¼ tops. I've just been messaging me saying I'm one of these people where it's never low enough. I said, so how's the last one I did for you? He says, not low enough, but perfect. What he's saying with that is, it's never low enough for him. But he knows I've done the very best I can do without it buzzing. And I'll do exactly the same with this one. Bit of residue on there. Just take residue, that is. Need to clean it all up yet anyway. like my clients to have high standards too. It gives me something to aim at. So I'm in a little bit of limbo today. The two guitars I wanted to work on, I can't work on. I'm waiting for a nut on this. I'm waiting for some varnish remover as well for another guitar where I strip the varnish off the fingerboard. And rather than scrape it off and mess it up, I've already got the frets out. I'm going to use a industry standard varnish remover that will not harm the wood, so it says. So there we go. That is the fretboard all ready. Again, a little bit of residue on there. The oil will remove any residue on here that I need to get rid of, and it will soak underneath. Oh, that's better. So there you go, there's the fretboard as it is. It looks fantastic, but that is it for now. Nothing else I can do until the nut gets here. So I'll sign off for now. Decided I'm going to cut my own nut. I've got bone blank here, and I can cut the nut slots from that piece here. Bit more long-winded. I'm not going to charge any extra for it. I've already priced the guitar up, but I'm going to cut my own from a blank rather than keep wasting money on the internet there. With the new nut cut to width and glued in, I've taken the old nut. I've used some tape. I've got the old nut. I've got it lined up, and I've used the lines of the string notches on the old nut to cut the notches on the new nut, and I've just taken the tenside of an old set, and it's just a matter of going into the groove and bringing it to the new nut. So there you go, into the old groove, over to the new nut. So all the strings are lined up perfectly, like so. So I've got a starter of each string slot. So all I have to do now is cut these to the right width. I've gone on the centre of each one, and like so, you've seen it all. I've got it all marked out. All I need to do now is remove the old nut, remove the shim I had under there to lift it up, remove the piece of tape, and there is the new nut with the lines for the strings all marked. So I'm just going to get them marked with the 10 again. We're never all lined up. All I need to do now is get the right gauge file and cut the slots properly, then reshape the nut. Now the nut is now glued in, so any final shaping will be done with it on the guitar. So I'm going to tape all the areas up to protect everything. I'm going to get one go at this. If I do anything wrong, I have to remove this nut again and put a new one in there, but that is glued in nicely. It'll all be final shaped on the guitar. We've got the 12 slots all cut for the strings, and not be as difficult as I first thought. Because I had trouble sourcing a nut replacement as such that would fit this guitar, either got the nuts were too wide, not wide enough, or the string spacing wasn't right, I'm making my own nut. And I've already started rough shaping the nut. And don't worry about any marks or anything on there at the moment. But what I'm doing is I've got the slots started using my Hosco files, got them all to the right width I need. And I'm just soft shaping the nut at the back, not the front, just the back. And it's a coarse file. It does have a safe edge here, and I have a chamois leather double folded and taped to the headstock. So if I do slip with the file, I'm not going to mark the headstock. And all I'm doing with this is just marking where I want everything to be. Now these slots are going to be a lot higher than I need them to be right now, but that is not a problem because I will be cutting them deeper as I shape the nut. So for instance, I've got quite a few files out. I've got a little key down here showing me which slots I need to cut and what thickness. So for instance, the second from the base, or the 11th nut slot, is going to be a 40 radius, or 0.04 of an inch. And I'm going to cut them to depth and shape the nut as I go along. It's long-winded. It's going to take me longer than just sticking a pre-cut nut on there, but I will be charging extra, and I'll be charging extra accordingly. But I'll just be cutting these slots as I shape the nut, and that way, because I've already got the slots started, we know everything's going to work fine and fit properly. I'm going to cut all of the slots slightly higher than they need to be, but enough. I'm going to cut them deep enough so I can still shape the nut while it's on the guitar. That's why I keep checking everything. So that needs to be 0.04. I'm actually cutting it to 0.042, which is the closest I've got. The one next to it needs to be 0.022. Well, the closest blade I've got, again, or file, is 0.024. So slightly wider than the string that's going in there, but certainly close enough. Nothing's going to pinch, which is what it's all about. We don't want strings in there snug anyway, we just want them so we're not really moving about any great amount. So I'm going to take my time doing this. Well, I don't have a choice, it's a time consuming job. And I will slot and shape as I go along. Now, one thing you must not do when doing this job is cut the slots too deep, so keep checking your work. I mean, these look deep at the moment, they're nowhere near deep enough. And what we don't want to do is also, we don't want to be scratching or filing over the frets we've just put in, because we're replacing frets already and we don't want to do that. So I'm going to have to get slightly in the way of the camera. There's no other way I can do it. But I'm going to soldier on with this. It is going to take a good while. But you can see where I'm going with this. And this slot is quite deep now, so we're looking really, really good there. If I stick that behind it, you'll probably see more of that slot. I'm not going to zoom in any more than that, but those slots are being cut really nice and deep now. Like I say, I'm going to crack on, and I will show you the result later. Really enjoying cutting this nut. Now, the nuts I bought in pre-slotted were no good. I couldn't get one with the correct string width, so I've cut one from a bone blank, and it's a more long-winded affair, and it's obviously more expensive because it's a boutique nut. I've got to cut it all by hand and what have you. But it's going really, really well. And what I've done is I've made myself a little piece, a little what do you call it? It'll come to me in a minute. But this is 1.6 millimeters high, and what I'll do is it'll sit under the strings. And what it does is it stops me going too deep with the nut slots. And these two, I've done the E's and the B's, and I'm coming up to the G strings in a minute. Now your G strings on this are bear with me a second, they are an 8 and a 14. So the treble, this side closest to me is an 8, and that's a 14. And we're sitting quite proud of that little jig type of thing I've made there, or that little template. So what I'm going to do is I can move the strings out. And with having that little template there, it means I'm not going to go too deep. I can't cut the slots too deep. Now, there's been quite a few times in my life that I've cut slots too deep, and it's not just annoying, it's more than annoying. It's uber annoying. But anyway, so I need to cut an 8 and a 14. Now, I don't have an 8, but the closest I've got is a 10, so I'm taking the 10. And the great thing about it is, I just cut the slot, keeping it level, making sure I don't scratch into the frets, because it's been refretted. Scratch the frets, I'll be replacing them. So there you go, and this is the number 10 file, because it's the thinnest I've got. And I'll cut it right down to this template. And we're not quite there yet, but that's probably deep enough for now. Don't want to go too deep. My next one's a 14. Now, I don't have a 14, but I do have a 13. Is a 13 still in it? Yes, it is. So I'll take the 13 and I'll use that. There you go. And again, I'll just cut down to this template. Now, make sure I cut in the right string. Remember, the thicker string goes toward the treble side. just the way it is with 12 strings. Now this 13 is really sharp. I'm just going to keep checking my work. And I'm still going to be too high, but what I'm doing is I'm cutting each height about 0.3mm above the first fret, just for now. I may have to go lower later on, but I'm going to use that as my guide at the moment. Now what I like to do is when I'm cutting a slot and it's not quite as wide as the string, I like to go in at a very, very slight angle just to widen it up a bit. So I'm going to just angle this file as I cut in, and it should then accept the 14 string, even though it's a 13 file. What I'll do is pull them over. I should be able to separate them here. It's probably an easy way to do this, but I've not found it yet. Let's hope we've not gone too low, and we haven't, and they look fantastic. So let me just take my 0.13 or 0.03mm, and the 14's way high, but so we are getting there, and what I'll do now is, now I'm pretty close, the 8 is pretty close, but the 14 still needs to be recut. So what I'll do is now, without a template there, I'll just move that string out of the way, I'll take the 13 file, and I'll eyeball this, and I'll just do this by hand gently. Blow and keep checking. I've gone a fair bit lower than the 8. Let's put it back in and see where we are, because you don't want to go too low because you'll be starting again. I'm still probably going to be a little bit high with both of them, but that 8's there, the 14 still needs to be cut a little bit more. So there you go, so that's how it works. And once, see look, that's holding that in quite nice. How good is that little template there? And I can do the same with the rest of the strings, cut down to this template, finish it off. Once I get it all eyeballed, once I've got all the nut slots cut to the correct depth, I'm going to loosen the strings. I'm going to bring them to the side, and I'm going to reshape the nut, probably over on the other bench, because the nut is way too high at the moment. So I don't cut the nut to shape until I've got the string slots cut to depth. So still quite a bit more work to do on this, but it's going well, and I'm actually really enjoying it today, so that's a bonus. We are all done with this Gretsch. Can't remember the model number, but it's come in, it's had a refret. I put a new bow nut on there, which I've cut by hand. After trying 2 nuts eyeball, they just didn't fit right, so I thought I'll cut a new one from a bone blank, which I've done. Take my time on that way, you have to take your time. It's not something you can do in 5 minutes, but it's a beautifully cut nut. We've got an insanely low action on this, 1.25mm, a virtually straight neck, 0.1mm relief at the 6th, 7th fret, and there you go, lovely looking thing. It's ready to go back to its owner, and I'm hoping he's going to like that low action on there, because that really is. That's much lower out of it, but he says he likes it that low. He says as long as it plays alright, and he plays mainly up this end. Set of Ernie Slinky strings on there. Gauge is 8 to 40, as you do. and the guitar is ready to go. So that's it till the next time. So as always, just remind you of our website, facebook.com/ng17. That's facebook.com/NGONESEVEN. I'm Victor, I'm your fret friend. Until next time, as always, God bless you, be good to each other, and I'll see you in the next one.